The mystery of recovered energy. Why do so many men report feeling an almost electric energy after a few days without pornography? This is the question that intrigues those who observe from the outside, but that only those who live the experience can understand. It's as if a hidden fire is lit, as if an invisible current runs through the body, bringing disposition, clarity, and vigor that previously seemed lost. And we're not talking about magic, superstition, or exaggeration. We're talking about biology, discipline, and choices that have real consequences. Pornography acts like a silent thief. It doesn't just steal your attention, but drains your vitality. It's like charging a cell phone that, even without using it, discharges quickly because it has apps running in the background. You don't realize it, but you're always tired, always without strength, always needing more stimulus to stay on your feet. When you cut this process, suddenly the battery starts to last longer. You wake up different, walk different, talk different. In this video, we're going to explore why this happens. We're going to talk about the invisible drain that pornography causes on the body and mind, showing how each relapse sucks not only momentary pleasure, but also motivation and vital energy. We're going to dive into the cycle of energy loss that accompanies addiction. The dopamine that spikes and then plummets, the mental fatigue that leaves you exhausted, the lack of clarity that takes the shine out of your presence. We're also going to see the opposite of this, the redirection of vital energy. Because this energy is not just physical, it's mental, spiritual, social. When it's not wasted, it accumulates, transforms into vigor, into clarity, into strength to act. We're going to understand the role of dopamine and serotonin, how the chemical balance is re-established, and how, little by little, the natural energy returns to flourish within you. Ordinary men report this all the time. More disposition to train, more focus on studies, more willingness to work, more clarity to make decisions. It's not a miracle, it's not a coincidence. It's the body returning to the state for which it was created. And it doesn't stop there. This energy is also reflected socially. The inner vitality overflows into confidence, into charisma, into presence. People notice, even if you don't say anything. But there is also the danger, the waste. Because each relapse is not just a fall, it's a theft. It's like a leaky bucket that never fills. You accumulate energy with effort, but by wasting it, you lose in seconds what took days to conquer. We're going to talk about that too, and about how to strengthen the bucket, the body, and the mind, so that this energy is preserved. And more than that, we're going to discuss practical strategies to enhance this force. Quality sleep, nourishing food, physical movement, exposure to the sun. Small habits that, added to NoFap, make your energy multiply. Finally, we're going to reflect on philosophy, because energy without direction is chaos. What matters is not just feeling good, but channeling this force into virtue, into purpose, into what builds. The life of the disciplined man is a virtuous cycle. More energy leads to more action leads to more discipline generates even more energy. This is the circle that sustains the true warriors. So I want you to stay with me until the end, because this video is not just about feeling energy, it's about understanding why it appears, how to preserve it, and mainly, how to use it to become the man you were born to be. But first, do two simple things. Subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss any episode of this daily series. Each day is a new piece of this armor that you are building. And answer me, how many times have you felt tired for no reason, without energy, as if your life was in slow motion? How many times have you realized that you wasted vitality on something that, deep down, only left you more empty? Today you will discover that the energy you seek is not in supplements, in coffees, or in artificial stimuli. It's inside you, just waiting for you to stop wasting it. The invisible drain of pornography. Few men realize it, but pornography is one of the biggest energy thieves that exists. It doesn't appear in an obvious way, like a disease that knocks down the body from one day to the next. It's not a blow that you feel immediately. It acts as a silent infiltration. It corrodes from the inside, day after day, until one day you see yourself weak, without will, without encouragement. And you don't understand why. Each time you consume pornography, it's not just pleasure that is at stake. The body releases dopamine in excess, as if it had lived a great achievement. But soon after comes the decline, the sharp fall, the feeling of emptiness. The brain interprets that it spent real energy in a real experience, but there was nothing but pixels. Result, the body reacts as if it were exhausted, even without having done anything. It's like charging a cell phone with dozens of apps open in the background. You don't see them working, but the battery is draining until it runs out. Pornography is this hidden app which seems turned off, but is consuming your vital energy every day. And the more you use it, the faster the battery runs out. And the most treacherous thing is that you get used to it. You start to think it's normal to live tired, normal to wake up without disposition, normal to need coffee, sugar, or increasingly greater stimuli to feel alive. But it's not normal. This state of apathy is the direct consequence of an addiction that drains your energy without you realizing it. Pornography not only sucks motivation, it steals mental clarity. After consuming, you realize that thoughts become scrambled, that the mind loses focus, that simple tasks seem heavier. It's no coincidence. The brain is trying to recover from a forced chemical discharge, as if it had run a marathon without having left the chair. This is the hidden price. Each relapse doesn't just leave guilt, it leaves exhaustion. Each time you give in, you don't just lose minutes, you lose vitality for the rest of the day. And if this repeats, the entire body enters a state of chronic low energy. You become dependent on constant stimuli to function, but each stimulus steals more than it gives. This is the silent theft of pornography, and the only way to realize it is when you decide to stop. Only then you realize how tired you were for no reason, how drained you were without knowing, how much you were living with half the energy you could have. The cycle of energy loss. Now we need to talk about the cycle, because pornography doesn't steal energy only at the moment of consumption. It creates a repetitive pattern of loss, a vicious circle that traps the man in a permanent state of fatigue. It all starts with dopamine. With each pornographic stimulus, the brain releases an intense wave, much greater than natural experiences would release. But soon after, dopamine plummets. This movement of peak and fall doesn't happen without consequences. Each fall leaves a trail of tiredness, of apathy, of lack of clarity. It's like an athlete who exhausts himself in short sprints, but never recovers the breath to run the marathon. After the dopamine fall, enters the mental fatigue. You feel as if you were without focus, without shine, with the mind scrambled. Simple things, like studying, talking, solving problems, seem heavier. The body is even sitting in the chair, but the mind is in fog. This state of mental confusion is what many describe as brain fog. And how does the man react to this? Looking for more stimulus. He feels that he is tired and thinks that the solution is to seek more pleasure, so he returns to pornography. He receives another dopamine peak, which soon plummets, leaving more tiredness. The cycle repeats. Each session seems to bring relief, but the price is always greater, until, with time, the body no longer responds in the same way. The vital energy is drained, the motivation disappears, and the man feels trapped in a constant state of exhaustion. This cycle also affects the physical body, because sexual energy is not just mental. It involves hormones, neurotransmitters, physical reserves of energy. Each time you waste, it's not just the mind that suffers, it's the entire body. The vigor is lost, the disposition falls, the training yields less, the sleep doesn't recover. And there is also the emotional impact. After each relapse, in addition to tiredness, comes the guilt. And the guilt weighs like lead. It drains not only mental energy, but also social. You avoid people, avoid conversations, avoid looking in the eyes. And this isolation increases the feeling of exhaustion. The cycle is not just chemical, it's existential. This is the cycle of energy loss of pornography. Pleasure, fall, tiredness, search for more pleasure, even greater fall, exhaustion. It's a downward spiral that seems to have no end. But it has. And the end begins when you decide to cut the stimulus and allow your body and your mind to return to balance. The redirection of vital energy. There is a truth that the ancients knew, but that the modern world forgot. Sexual energy is not just instinct, it's vital force. When you waste it in excess, You lose not only pleasure, but vigor, clarity, disposition. But when you preserve it, when you decide not to spill it on screens and illusions, this energy begins to redirect to other areas of your life. Think of a river. If you open small cracks in the banks, the water escapes and the main flow weakens. But when you close these cracks, the river gains power, runs stronger, moves mills, generates energy. So it is with your vitality. Pornography opens cracks that drain this force. NoFap closes the cracks, and suddenly you realize there is more energy to think, to act, to create. This redirection is not mystical, it's biological. The body, by not spending reserves in excess, accumulates energy that can be used in other functions: cell repair, mental clarity, focus, physical strength. That's why so many men report better performance in training, greater disposition at work, more concentration in studies. What was previously burned in seconds begins to be invested in real progress. But it's not just physical. The mental energy also changes direction. Pornography hijacks your attention, occupies space in the mind, steals hours of life. When you cut this cycle, you discover that you have more time, more focus, more space to think. Ideas arise, projects flourish, life returns to have movement. And there is still the spiritual aspect. Many men describe this redirected energy as something almost sacred, as if an inner flame was rekindled, because deep down, that's exactly it. By not wasting, you honor yourself. And this honor translates into vigor. You feel pride instead of guilt, dignity instead of shame. And this moral energy adds to the physical, creating a state of silent power. This is the redirection of vital energy, taking force from where there was previously waste, and transforming it into fuel for achievements. Each day of resistance is a brick of accumulated energy. Each week is a full reservoir. Each month is a river running with more force. The role of dopamine and serotonin. To understand why your energy increases in NoFap, we need to talk about neurochemistry. Because it's not just a matter of willpower, it's a matter of balance between two fundamental neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin. Dopamine is the messenger of motivation, of desire, of the search. It's what triggers when you have a goal, when you desire something, when you imagine a reward. The problem with pornography is that it hyperstimulates dopamine artificially. Each click, each new video, each different scene generates a chemical explosion in the brain. But then comes the fall. And this fall brings fatigue, apathy, emptiness. Serotonin, on the other hand, is the messenger of balance, of satisfaction, of calm. It's what stabilizes the mood, what gives a feeling of lasting well-being. The addiction to pornography deregulates this balance. Too much dopamine, too little serotonin. Result, you live in a frantic search for stimulus, but you never find peace. When you cut pornography, this balance begins to readjust. In the first days, there is discomfort. The body misses the artificial peaks, but little by little the level of dopamine returns to normal. Serotonin returns to act with force, and suddenly you realize simple things start to bring pleasure again. A walk, a good meal, a conversation. This is real energy returning. And it's not just psychological. This chemical balance directly influences the body. With fewer dopamine peaks, the brain saves energy. With more serotonin, the body rests better, the sleep deepens, the recovery improves. That's why so many men report waking up more willing after a few days without pornography. This process is like restarting a system. For years, pornography hijacked your software, messed up the commands, drained the battery. NoFap is the reset button. And after the system returns to the standard, the machine runs cleaner, faster, more efficient. Dopamine returns to fulfill its role of real motivation and not of illusion. Serotonin guarantees balance, well-being, and peace. And together, these two messengers return to you the energy that was always yours, but that was being wasted. Visible examples of extra energy. If it still seems theory, just look at the reports of men who decided to abandon pornography. What they describe is not just less guilt or more mental clarity. They talk about energy, a concrete, perceptible, almost palpable energy. Ordinary men who previously dragged their feet to get out of bed suddenly wake up before the alarm clock. ready to act. Students who previously couldn't focus even 15 minutes report spending hours immersed in books or projects. Workers who previously counted the minutes to the end of the shift realize that they can deliver more with less wear. In training, the results are even more evident. Many describe that, after a few weeks without pornography, they lift more weight, run faster, have more resistance. And it's not magic, it's biology. The body, previously trapped in cycles of artificial stimulus and subsequent fatigue, begins to accumulate real energy. The hormonal system balances, testosterone finds its natural level, dopamine returns to respond to true achievements. The result is increased physical strength and renewed vigor. In studies, something similar happens. The mind, previously dispersed, begins to focus. The brain fog goes away. Ideas flow. Projects that were stopped begin to move. A young man reported that, after cutting pornography, he was finally able to write the book he had dreamed of for years. Not because he suddenly became more intelligent, but because his energy stopped being wasted. At work, the effect is visible. Productivity grows, but not only in quantity, it grows in quality. You start to deliver with more clarity, with more creativity, with more presence. Your colleagues notice, your bosses notice. Suddenly, you are seen as someone trustworthy, someone who has energy, even if no one knows how to explain the reason. But perhaps the most impactful example is in the simple day-to-day. Men report feeling pleasure in tasks that were previously just obligation. Walking becomes experience. Cooking stops being weight. Washing the dishes becomes a moment of reflection. This pleasure in the simple is a sign that the energy has returned to the right place. Because when the body is no longer trapped in artificial peaks, it finds strength to rejoice in the everyday. These examples show that the extra energy is not myth, it's not exaggeration. It's a natural consequence of stopping wasting. It's like closing an open tap. The water returns to fill the reservoir, and when this reservoir is full, life gains another color. The social energy. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this transformation is the social energy. Because vitality is not kept inside you, it overflows. And when it overflows, it changes the way the world responds to your presence. A tired, drained, without energy man transmits this without realizing it. His look is extinguished, his voice is weak, his posture is curved. The people around feel it. They don't need to know the reason. They don't need to know your secrets. They just realize that something in him is broken, and before that, they move away. They don't trust. They don't connect. Now, when this same man cuts pornography and recovers energy, the opposite happens. His presence changes. The look shines. The voice gains body. The posture aligns. He transmits confidence without saying a word. And people respond. Suddenly, conversations flow. Friendships strengthen. Relationships flourish. Not because he learned social techniques, but because his inner energy changed. Vitality translates into charisma. Charisma is not trick. It's not formula. It's not rehearsed smile. Charisma is authentic energy overflowing. It's being so full of life that others want to be near you. Pornography steals this charisma because it steals energy. NoFap returns it because it closes the drain of waste. And this social energy is not just attraction, it's trust. People start to trust you because they realize, even without understanding, that you are whole, that your presence is stable, that your word is firm, that your look doesn't flee. This is the true power of recovered energy, transforming not only your inner life but your life in community. Social energy is the proof that NoFap is not just about you. It's about the impact you generate on others. It's about the circle that forms around you when your presence returns to weigh, when your energy returns to shine. The danger of waste. Imagine a bucket being filled with clean water every day. You dedicate effort, discipline, patience, and little by little the level rises. But this bucket has a hole in the bottom. No matter how much you fill it, it never gets full. That's what pornography does to your energy. It opens invisible holes that drain everything you took days to accumulate. Each relapse is not just an isolated act of pleasure, it's a drain of vitality. You may have spent 5 days, 10 days, maybe even a month accumulating energy, and in a few minutes, It drains away as if it never existed. The body and mind become exhausted, as if all progress had been erased. And the worst part is that this waste generates an emotional cycle. Because when you feel the loss, you blame yourself, and the guilt weighs more than the fall itself. This psychological weight sucks even more energy. You not only lost physical vitality, but now you carry shame, discouragement, anger at yourself. It's as if the hole in the bucket had become even bigger. This is the great danger. Relapse doesn't just steal a moment, it steals days of accumulated energy. It steals confidence, clarity, disposition. It makes you feel like you're back to square one. And even if it's not true, the feeling is real, and that feeling is what brings many men down, making them give up. But there is a truth that can change your perspective. The bucket can be fixed. Every time you decide to resist, you are plugging cracks. Each choice strengthens the container. Each victory makes waste more difficult. Pornography makes you believe that you are doomed to always lose. But when you persevere, you discover that you can accumulate, you can sustain, you can save your energy. This energy is too precious to be wasted. Because it's not just physical strength, it's mental clarity, it's emotional vigor, it's spiritual dignity. Throwing that away for minutes of illusion is like trading gold for dust, and when you understand that, the impulse loses power. You realize it's not worth it. The bucket only fills when you close the holes. And NoFap is precisely that process, closing the gaps, preserving energy, accumulating until it overflows into real strength. Strategies to boost energy. Recovering energy with NoFap is powerful, but there is an even more important key: boosting that energy. Because accumulated energy without direction can be lost in anxiety, restlessness, impulses. To transform it into true strength, you need to take care of your body and mind in a practical and disciplined way. The first strategy is sleep. Sleep is the charger of your battery. There's no point in accumulating energy if you don't allow the body to recover and reorganize that energy during the night. Men who sleep poorly feel less disposition, less clarity, less strength. Cutting out pornography already improves sleep, but you need to ensure regularity. Go to bed early, avoid screens at night, respect rest. The second strategy is food. What you put in your body is fuel. Excess sugar, ultra-processed foods, and alcohol drain energy. Real food, rich in nutrients, builds solid energy. Think like an ancient warrior. Your body is a weapon, not a trash can. The third is physical movement. Energy that is not used rots. The body was made to move, to spend strength constructively. Training, walking, running, practicing martial arts, any form of movement channels accumulated energy into real vigor. Many men report that when training during NoFap, their disposition explodes, because the body finally has fuel to spend. Another strategy is exposure to the sun. It may seem simple, but sunlight regulates hormones, strengthens the immune system, improves mood. Modern men live locked in dark rooms, and this increases apathy. 10 minutes of sun in the morning can transform your day. And finally, there is the habit of daily discipline. Creating simple routines such as waking up at the same time, writing down tasks, keeping commitments. Each routine is a channel through which energy can flow. Without discipline, energy becomes anxiety. With discipline, it becomes productivity. These strategies are not magic. They are tools that amplify the effect of NoFap. Without them, you will have energy, but you may waste it. With them, you transform energy into strength, and strength into results. Therefore, it is not enough to accumulate. Use it, direct it, boost it. Transform your recovered energy into the engine of your life. Energy is one of the clearest signs of transformation. It cannot be hidden. When a man recovers vitality, his whole body announces it without words. The look gains brightness, the step gains firmness, the voice gains weight. Even the skin looks more alive. It's impossible not to notice. Those who live with you notice the difference even before you do. But this change is only possible because you decided to cut the waste. And this decision, however silent it may be, echoes throughout your life. The man who was tired, without energy, gets up again. The one who lived faded becomes a presence. The one who seemed invisible becomes noticed. This is not a detail, It is an inner revolution that translates into every gesture, into every word. And I know that you, at some point in your journey, have already felt this shock of vitality. Maybe in the first few days when you woke up with more disposition. Maybe in the first week when you realized that the training yielded more. Maybe after a few weeks when you noticed that your mind was clearer, faster, more focused. This is the moment when you realize that it is not an illusion, that the extra energy is not an invention, that it is real, tangible, powerful, and that it is within reach of any man who decides to close the drain of pornography. Now I want you to reflect deeply. Have you felt more energy after a few days without pornography? Think about the details. More focus at work, more disposition to train, more desire to talk, more clarity to think. Where did you feel this difference? Answer in the comments. Not just as a record, but as a public commitment. Because when you declare aloud, or write for others to read, what you have experienced, you reinforce to yourself that you are on the right path. Your answer can become inspiration for another man who is tired and needs proof that this fight is worth it. This is the power of the community. This is the strength of sharing. So write. Tell your experience. Mark your progress. Because each testimony is a new weapon against the lie of addiction. Philosophy of well-used energy. Energy by itself means nothing. It's like fire. Fire can warm or destroy. It can illuminate or consume. It all depends on where it is placed. The same thing happens with the energy recovered by nofap. If you don't give it direction, it becomes restlessness, anxiety, aimless agitation. But if you channel it, it becomes creative force, discipline, purpose. The Stoics already warned, it is not brute force that defines man, but the use he makes of it. A man full of energy but without direction is like a wild horse running without brakes. It impresses for a moment, but ends in a fall. A man who channels his energy, however, is like a river that moves mills, that irrigates lands, that generates life. Therefore, it is not enough to feel good about being more energetic. Ask yourself, what am I doing with this energy? Is it being used to build something bigger, or just to fill hours with different distractions? Is it being invested in projects, in relationships, in growth, or just in more fleeting stimuli? The philosophy of well-used energy is simple. Discipline. Energy without discipline is chaos. Discipline transforms energy into virtue. That's what makes the difference between the common man and the warrior. The common one wastes, the warrior directs. And here is the Stoic reflection. Every time you feel this extra energy, you are faced with a moral choice. You can use it for immediate pleasure, returning to the cycle of waste. Or you can use it to become someone stronger, wiser, more capable. This daily choice is what defines who you will be in a year, in 10 years. The modern world is full of men full of energy, but empty of purpose. That's why they run from one side to the other, always busy, but never fulfilled. The real secret is not in having energy, but in using it well. And nofap is the basis for that, because it gives you back the energy that pornography stole. But it is your discipline that will say where that energy goes. Channel it to virtue. Channel it to what builds. Channel it to what gives meaning to your life. The virtuous cycle. There is a point in the journey where the struggle ceases to be just resistance and begins to become growth. In the beginning, the man fights against himself, against impulses, against constant temptation. Each day seems like a battle fought with the internal enemy, and victory seems to come at a high price. But as the days accumulate, something extraordinary happens. Energy is not only used to resist, but begins to push you forward. This is where the virtuous cycle is born. This cycle is simple to describe, but grand in its effects. More energy leads to more action leads to more discipline generates even more energy. It is a wheel that turns on itself, always upwards. In the beginning, moving this wheel is difficult, requires effort, requires focus, requires determination. But over time, the wheel itself gains inertia. What was heavy in the beginning becomes natural. What once seemed impossible suddenly becomes part of your daily life. A man who yesterday needed almost superhuman effort to resist, today wakes up with disposition. What was once a daily struggle against laziness today is transformed into the pleasure of acting. What was once emptiness and fatigue, today becomes strength and clarity. This is the beauty of the virtuous cycle. It transforms effort into impulse. And it's not just you who notices. People around you begin to notice the difference. Your family comments on how you seem more alive. Your friends notice your firmer presence. Your co-workers recognize your productivity and clarity. This external perception further reinforces the cycle because it validates what you already felt inside. You begin to believe more in yourself, not only for what you feel, but for what you see reflected in others. But the most powerful thing about the virtuous cycle is that it has no limit. The more you accumulate energy, the more you want to preserve it. The more you preserve, the more you accumulate. The more you accumulate, the more results you reap. And these results, in turn, feed back into discipline, which generates even more energy. It is an exponential growth. The ancients already spoke of this. Marcus Aurelius described the power of habit, how repeated actions form character. Epictetus said that each act molds the soul and that man becomes what he practices. The virtuous cycle is exactly that. The practice of discipline transforms into who you are. The energy recovered by NoFap is not just fuel for better days, it is the brick with which you build the strongest version of yourself. This cycle is the answer to the discouragement that many feel in the beginning. Because in the beginning it seems too difficult. But when you persevere, you discover that you are not just fighting against relapses. You are creating an entire different life. Effort turns into pleasure. Resistance turns into victory. Victory turns into a lifestyle. The virtuous cycle is not just about winning today. It is about ensuring that each victory of today becomes fuel for the victories of tomorrow. And when you enter this flow, you discover that discipline ceases to be a weight and becomes wings. But here is the final key. Energy is not only to be saved. Stored energy, without direction, becomes restlessness, becomes anxiety, becomes frustration. The true meaning of recovering your vitality with NoFap is not just feeling more alive, but using that strength to create, to build, to transform. Energy without purpose is like a sword kept in its sheath. It may impress at first glance, but only shows its value when it is wielded. And the call that I make to you today is simple. Use the energy that you have recovered. Do not waste it on useless distractions. Do not spend it on small battles. Direct it to something bigger, something that leaves a mark, something that changes your life and the lives of those around you. Look at history. The ancient warriors did not accumulate energy for themselves, but to fight for their cities, for their families, for their ideals. The discipline they cultivated was not an end in itself, but a means to something greater. Similarly, your discipline here is not just for you to feel stronger. It is for you to become useful, productive, present, reliable. The world does not need more drained, tired, insecure men. The world needs men full of energy, but above all, full of purpose. It needs present fathers, dedicated workers, honest leaders, men who do not bow to addiction but rise with dignity. You can be that man. You must be that man. Do not allow this energy to become just restlessness. Put it into action. Study with focus, work with discipline, train with vigor, love with presence, serve with humility. Each gesture becomes more powerful when it comes loaded with true energy. And remember, confidence is not just resisting, it is building. Real confidence is born when you see concrete fruits of your effort. When you look back and realize that you used your energy to create something solid, a career, a family, a work, a legacy. This is the call. Do not be content with just feeling better. Use the energy you have to make the world better. NoFap gave you back the flame that was extinguished. Now it is up to you to decide. Will you leave it lit only to illuminate yourself, or will you transform it into a fire that warms, that guides, that moves? The choice is yours. But know, each day that you waste is a day that could be great. This is the call. Be the man who channels his energy to something eternal. Because in the end, it will not be your words that will say who you were, but what you built with the energy you received. There is a flame inside every man. Some call it willpower, others spirit, others still vital energy. But regardless of the name, this flame exists. And like every flame, it can be fed or extinguished. Pornography is a cold wind that tries to extinguish this flame every day. NoFap, on the other hand, is the firm hand that protects the flame against the storm, that feeds it, that transforms it into a fire capable of illuminating not only oneself, but everyone around. Discipline is the oxygen of this flame. Without discipline, the energy you feel is just a spark, which shines for moments and soon disappears. But when discipline enters, the spark becomes ember, and the ember becomes continuous fire. This fire is what differentiates the common man from the man who marks his generation. The first lives putting out fires, chasing immediate pleasure, trapped in cycles of waste. The second keeps his flame lit, day after day, until his own life becomes a testimony to the power of discipline. Have you noticed how pornography steals this flame? After each relapse, it is as if the fire diminished. The look loses brightness, the body loses vigor, the mind loses clarity. You feel the cold of apathy, the weight of exhaustion, the shadow of shame. And in this state, you try to seek the fire again in artificial sources, coffee, social media, endless distractions. But nothing warms truly, nothing illuminates truly, because the real fire is only born when you close the gaps, when you protect the flame of discipline. And the opposite is also true. When you resist, the flame grows. In the beginning, small, almost imperceptible. After a few days, you already feel warmth, you already perceive strength. After a few weeks, the fire is so strong that it begins to illuminate not only your own life, but also that of others. People around you feel your presence, your energy, your clarity. You become a torch in the midst of a world full of shadows. The flame of discipline is more than sensation. It is identity. Every time you resist, you send a message to yourself. I am reliable. Every time you keep your word, you prove to yourself that you are worthy. And this dignity is not theoretical, it is visible. It is in the eyes that do not flee, in the voice that does not tremble, in the posture that does not waver. The flame burns in silence, but everyone perceives the heat. Think of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his diary at night to remind himself to keep the flame lit, even in the midst of war. Epictetus, a slave, said that no one is free if he cannot govern his own desires. Seneca stated that the greatest power is not in dominating the world, but in dominating oneself. All spoke of the same flame, the discipline that transforms energy into virtue. Think of the ancient warriors, Spartans, samurai, warrior monks. All knew that lust was a cold wind that extinguished the flame. Therefore they cultivated continence, silence, self-control. Not because they were insensitive, but because they knew that the flame needs to be preserved so that the war can be won. And today, your war is not with swords, but with screens. It is not against armies, but against impulses. But the logic is the same. Whoever loses discipline loses the fire. Whoever loses the fire loses himself. Pornography is a false flame. It warms for minutes but leaves ashes. NoFap is the real flame. It requires effort to light, patience to maintain, courage to protect. But once lit, this flame never abandons you again. Because it is not just physical energy, it is spiritual dignity. Now I want you to reflect. How much of your life have you stopped living because you were extinguished? How many projects have you stopped starting because you felt tired? How many opportunities have you lost because you carried shame instead of confidence? How many dreams died because your flame was too small to illuminate them? And now I want you to imagine the opposite, your flame growing every day. You waking up with energy, training with vigor, studying with focus, working with discipline. You present in your relationships, firm in your commitments, stable in your identity. This flame is not fantasy, it is real, and you have already begun to rekindle it. But the final question is, will you let it grow, or will you extinguish it again? Will you protect the flame of discipline, or will you expose it to the wind of pornography? The decision is yours. The fire has already been lit, but it is you who chooses whether it will become a bonfire or whether it will be extinguished by the next impulse. Therefore, I want you to commit today. Do two simple things now. Subscribe to the channel, because this series is the firewood that feeds your flame every day. Comment energy below as a sign that you are committed to keeping this flame lit. And do not forget, this fight is not just yours. Every time you comment, you inspire another man who is extinguished. You show that it is possible to rekindle. Your flame becomes collective fire. Your discipline becomes an example. And to finish, I want to make it clear, this journey is not over. And this was the video I prepared for you. But the flame of discipline does not go out here. The next episode is already appearing on your screen now. Click and continue with me, because each step we take together is more firewood thrown into the fire that will illuminate your entire life.